All right. I have the distinct honor and privilege of welcoming our Senator Kelly Ayotte to the event this morning. All right. And as you know, and as I can tell from your applause, you know that we have a senator who takes some tough stands for us. And she's there for us when we need her. She was there for us on the Second Amendment at a time when it was really tough to take a hard vote. And she did that for us. She's a clear voice on a balanced budget. She understands ISIS and its threat abroad as well as its threat here at home. And importantly, she's an advocate for veterans and she's an advocate for the military. She's a phenomenal senator and we're privileged to have her. Now what's really interesting, as you know, Maggie Hassan wants to take her place. And you heard my opinion on Maggie last evening. Right. I won't go into it again, but just one more little example. Maggie wants a COO in Concord because she can't do the job herself. When you go to Washington as a senator, you can't take a COO with you. The Democrats and Maggie want the Senate back. We're not going to let them have it. And we have one of the best senators, if not the best senator in America, right here in this room with us today. Get one of these pins. Let's make sure Kelly stays in Washington. Join me in welcoming Kelly Ayotte.
Thank you all. Thank you. I want to thank Dan Innes for that more than kind introduction. I have to say it is wonderful to see all of you here today. I see so many friends in this room. And to those of you that aren't from New Hampshire, welcome to the Live Free or Die state. We take our politics very, very seriously. And it's just a great day to see such a turnout for the first ever, first in the nation National Republican Leadership Summit, and it's an honor. I see my colleague, Congressman Ginta here. I want to thank him for his incredible work, and thanks for being a great partner. But I also want to thank all of you who have made this possible, but the leader of our party, Jennifer Horn, for her steady, faithful leadership, for the hard work that she has done to bring this summit together today, and I'm so glad to have her leadership for the Republican Party. Yes, thank you to Jennifer. I also want to, this is not easy to put a conference like this together, and I happen to have a really enjoyable moment in the back with the staff at the Crown Plaza. And we were talking, some of us, about what it means to be a mom and multitasking and all of that. So I just want to reach out to the staff who are here helping and serving us today and say thank you for being this. We appreciate what you do. As I look at all of you here today, I think this is a testament to the unique and important role that New Hampshire plays in the presidential process. We're celebrating 100th year of the first in the nation primary. And you know, Daniel Webster once said that in the mountains of New Hampshire, God makes men. Well, I'd like to add to that, that in New Hampshire, we pick presidents. And one of the things why New Hampshire is so important, and I think we're seeing it with this summit today, is that everyone gets a fair shot. And we take very seriously our responsibility to ask the hard questions, to go to the town halls, to really find out what these candidates stand for and what their vision is for the United States of America and what they're going to do to turn this country around from the failed policies of Barack Obama and where we have been over the last 6 or 7 years. Here's what I want to make sure. I want to make sure that whoever wins this presidential nomination to represent the Republican Party, that candidate shares our common sense values here in New Hampshire, our love of liberty in New Hampshire, our commitment to our men and women in uniform, and our commitment to building a brighter future for not only everyone in this room, but my children, your children, and our grandchildren. Now, I know today you've already heard from a number of the candidates. You're going to hear after me from many more candidates, including into the evening. So what I thought I would talk to you about today, many of you know, I serve on the Armed Services Committee. I serve on the Homeland Security Committee. And from my perspective, as your senator, I think one of the most important issues and challenges facing our next president is how to keep America safe. We need a commander-in-chief who is going to ensure that America leads in a way that keeps this country safe from radical Islamic terrorists who would seek to harm us, who are going to ensure that instead of where we are right now, that our enemies around the world understand that you should not mess with the United States of America, and that our friends understand that we are a reliable friend, that we will stand with you and together. But today where we are, I think we all understand that that's not what is happening under the current administration. In fact, President Obama promised when he ran for president in 2008 that he would restore America's standing in the world. But does anyone in this room believe that we are safer today than when Barack Obama took office? No. Unfortunately, I don't either. Sadly, the obvious answer is no. In fact, the lack of American leadership under this president has made the world more dangerous, and you just have to take a look around the world. In the Middle East, ISIS has seized territory in Iraq and Syria to establish an Islamic caliphate. Nothing is true, brutal, or barbaric for this terrorist group. We've seen how they have tormented, tortured, raped, killed Christians for what they believe in. We are also seeing the resurgence of Al-Qaeda and affiliated groups in Yemen, Libya, and other areas around the world. You might recall that last fall, just this past fall, the president cited Yemen as an example of success in terms of the administration's counterterrorism strategy. Can you imagine Yemen, a success model? I'd hate to see what failure looks like. In the United States Senate last spring, I saw what was happening in Yemen. In fact, I introduced an amendment in the defense authorization to ensure that we would not transfer any of the dangerous terrorists held at Guantanamo to Yemen. And I got that amendment passed in the defense authorization. But at the last minute in the Committee of Conference, because the administration did not want it in there, because they still hoped that they could transfer terrorists from Guantanamo to Yemen, they got it stripped out. Could you imagine transferring dangerous terrorists from Guantanamo to Yemen? But that's exactly the types of moves that this administration is making, trying to empty Guantanamo with what we have left there with some of the most dangerous terrorists in the world. And if you look at where we are with a country like Yemen right now, most recently the United States closed its embassy, withdrew all its personnel, and guess who we can thank in part for that? Iran. Iran, the very country that we are negotiating with right now over their nuclear program, because they've actually funded some of the groups on the ground that caused our people to have to evacuate from Yemen and are causing some of the chaos in Yemen that is further emboldening Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which is the most dangerous portion of Al-Qaeda that has its designs to attack the United States of America. This week, al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula seized a civilian airport there. Earlier this year, al-Qaeda overran and looted a military base in western Yemen, and it goes on and on and on. And if you need any further evidence of how detached this administration is from the reality of what we're facing around the world, look at what the president said just a few months ago in his State of the Union address. We're not talking about last year. We're talking about just a few months ago, when he declared that the shadow of crisis has passed. How can anyone, much less the leader of the free world, believe that the global security situation that we're facing today, that the shadow of crisis has passed? As I said earlier, as I look around the world, our allies feel abandoned and our adversaries feel emboldened. And I think that is no more apparent when it comes to what is happening right now with these negotiations with Iran. Look at our closest and most reliable ally in the Middle East, Israel. Israel, at this moment, the administration has spent more time criticizing the leader of Israel and Israel's legitimate concerns about Iran than it has being critical of the things that the Iranian regime has done to sponsor terrorism around the world. Now, that truly is a disconnect. We should stand strong with our strong friend Israel in the Middle East. One of the most important issues coming up in the United States Senate, and I believe it could be the most important national security issue that I will work on in my time in the Senate, is this issue of the agreement with Iran. This would represent the most important international arms control agreement since the end of the Cold War. And what's the administration trying to do with it? To tell the American people that their elected representatives, people like me who are elected by the people of New Hampshire, that we should butt out on this agreement, that we should not have any say in what happens on your behalf with this agreement. What we know about the potential deal, and I think the more we know, we understand exactly why the administration is trying to prevent Congress from weighing in on this agreement, because frankly, the deal stinks. We started out these negotiations, rightly so, to make sure that Iran, the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, to make sure that Iran, a country that has said that it wants to wipe Israel off the map, that has called us the great Satan, would not have a nuclear weapon. But where we have ended up with the framework announced by this administration is in a totally different place. We've gone from ending their program as the starting point to now we're managing it. We're managing the scope of it and allowing Iran a breakout capability to a nuclear bomb. That is unacceptable when it comes to the security of the United States of America and the security of the world. And that's why I say to all of you, as we return to the United States Senate, I believe this is one of the most important security issues that I will work on your behalf. Because without security, we cannot have prosperity. Without security, we cannot have freedom. And it is the #1 responsibility of our government to ensure our freedom and our prosperity. So I take this responsibility very seriously. And it's not just that we are unfortunately in a position now where we're negotiating over the scope of their capability rather than ending their capability, but it's also what's been left off the table in this agreement. Iran is sponsoring terrorism around the world. They're sponsoring the Houthis in Yemen that are destabilizing that country and hurting our interests. They're sponsoring groups like Hezbollah that terrorize individuals. They are sponsoring the murderous Assad regime, and yet none of that is being discussed in these negotiations. Iran is building an intercontinental ballistic missile, or an ICBM. Do you know why they're doing that? So that they could hit the east coast of this country. And yet, that is not on the table in these discussions. Their missile program is not being addressed in these discussions. Iran, what they want is they want more money. We have strong economic sanctions in place right now. We have them in a position where oil prices are low, and we have them in a position where, frankly, they need sanctions relief. And what do? We give them concession after concession after concession. Well, I say this: if the President of the United States is not going to negotiate an agreement that ends their program, and by the way, one that ensures that Iran can never have a nuclear bomb, then it is up to the United States Senate, it is up to the Congress to make sure that we get a voice in this agreement, and that we make sure that the country is protected and that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. That is why I have been proud to lead the effort to ensure that we pass legislation to give Congress a say on whether the toughest economic sanctions are lifted against Iran before any agreement is agreed to and gets in place for this country. And that's what this fight is about as we return to the United States Senate. And I plan to fight with all my being to ensure that our constitutional role is fulfilled, that as your elected representative, that we have a voice to make sure that this administration does not continue to enter a bad deal. A good deal with Iran would be a blessing, but where we are right now, from what I have heard, would be a nightmare for this country. So I want to thank all of you for what you're doing, because this Iran situation is not the only challenge that we're facing. Because as I look at other countries around the world, just look what Russia did this week. That Russia this week, over our objections, lifted its ban on the sale of surface-to-air missiles to Iran. What does this signal? What it signals is that Iran is going to continue to get support from countries like Russia and China. And so stopping and ensuring that they are not able to get a nuclear bomb, that they are not able to have the money that sanctions relief would give them. What do you think they're going to do with this money? They're going to support more terrorism, unfortunately, is so, so critical. And this presidential election, when it comes to our leadership in the world, could not be more important. We need a president who is clear-eyed about the role of the commander-in-chief. We need a president that is going to ensure that America's role in the world is one that causes our adversaries not to want to mess with the United States of America, and causes our friends to understand that we will stand with them. We need a president who is going to ensure that America remains safe. And I will tell you this, as we look at what's happening, where does Secretary Clinton stand when it comes to Russia? She was the one who pressed the reset button. When I look at what's happening, where does Secretary Clinton stand when it comes to this Iran deal? She was one of the architects of the president's foreign policy. So the distinctions in this election between our candidate, whoever we pick, and if their candidate is going to be Secretary Clinton, could not be more clear or more important. Because if America is not safe and we do not have a commander-in-chief who stands strong to protect this country, then we can't have anything else. So I ask you to work as hard as you can in this election to make sure that we elect a Republican president in 2016. We've got to make it happen. I will work alongside of you in those efforts. I'll work hand in hand with you, because this is not one that we can leave anything behind. I know now we're going through our nominating process. I hope that you will ask each of our candidates what their view is of what it means to be commander-in-chief. I hope that you will ask each of our candidates what their vision is for how we can ensure a stronger, more prosperous America. I hope that you will ask each of our candidates how are they going to ensure that America doesn't get swallowed by its own debt. And finally, I hope you will ask, most importantly, each of our candidates, how do you plan to beat Hillary Clinton and make sure that we win this election? So I thank you for having me here today, and let's go out and win this election in 2016.
Are you going to let Maggie Hassan replace her in the U.S. Senate? Thank you so much, Senator Ayotte. Fantastic, fantastic.